Who has a
killed me.
100-word summary of the nonsense you guys got up to last week?
We're about to die by a wave. That's all I remember.
Well, Adrex isn't.
Ocean related.
Cool.
Well, so our party got their first experience of the average sailor's port life. That is to say, getting extremely high and extremely drunk. Sometimes both. Gu did work. He did not get high or drunk, and he's still kind of miffed about that. We found out that there's this Dragonborn who may or may not have a history with Birdie, is trying to muscle his way onto this pirate council, and having found that out, we figured that there's going to be some kind of power play which will force Captain Eyes off of the deceit and into a desk job for the rest of his life, and that apparently will be bad news.
Question mark.
And to the tune of like dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. And then, as we were trying to suss all this nonsense out, a big old tidal wave happened, or was in the process of happening.
Adrex,
Yes, sir.
what is your reaction to this situation? You were aboard the Deceit at the time, having been called back because one of the orcs was wounded.
Yep.
Totally
When you
right.
go aboard the ship, you see the ship is listing to one side as the water underneath it is dragged away. And you see this wall of water forming between you and the Kovnos, heading in that direction very swiftly.
We're talking like matter of seconds before it hits, right?
Probably a little more time than that. But it is inevitable.
Well, in that case, Adrex would go up to the top deck and start shouting incoming tidal wave. Just
Okay.
to let people do something. Get his big old dragon mouth behind it. Start shouting.
Birdie, you become aware of this imminent wall of water slamming into the Kovnos. And let's say you have a couple of minutes to prepare for this impact. What are
Like
you
which-
doing with this time?
Which direction is it coming? Is it coming from this
From
way?
northwest, from the ocean,
Uh,
which is big, I just heard.
I think we should run and get as high as we can. I don't know. I don't have any. Don't have any experience with tidal waves.
So you're not doing. You're just gonna.
I mean, I guess I'll just climb up in the nearest building as high as I can.
Okay. Get up high on a building.
Yeah.
What is Gu doing for these couple of minutes?
I imagine he's still on the minnow, the drown. Was it the drowned minnow? I think is what it was called.
Yes. Well, the damned minnow.
The
You
damned
were
minnow.
Speaking with hand axe.
The damned minnow. Has the minnow ever had? Has this place ever had history of tidal waves?
They're not completely unheard of.
Okay,
but I'll leave it up
the
to
minnow
you to determine whether or not Gu has any experience with them.
But the minnow has been here for years and years and years and years, right?
Oh, the Kovnos has been here for years and years.
But the minnow itself hasn't?
No, they both have.
Okay.
No, this is old establishment.
So then he would probably knuckle down with Handex, who he was speaking to at the end of the last session, as I recall.
What is Red doing with these few minutes?
Shouting for everyone to get on any ship that they can. Any of these boats that looks like they're still going to float, if the water suddenly raises up under them, and then start cutting ties on those boats. And at the last second, get on one of them.
Okay. What is Windy doing with those few minutes?
How many people are nearby?
I just want to ask, does Wendy actually get a few minutes? I guess she hears us yelling.
Yeah.
She doesn't see the wall of water, but she would become aware of what's happening very quickly, yes. You guys were near to the boarding house and the main tavern, so quite a lot of people nearby.
I'm going to be burning all of my key points, trying to get as many people as high up as possible.
How are you doing that with key points?
Just burning them on dashes and carrying.
Step of the wind.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to give everybody a strength saving throw.
Okay.
Red, make this a disadvantage because you're in a boat.
Mm-hmm.
Make this at advantage because I'm going to assume you'll be flying.
Uh-huh.
Adrex, you don't need to make anything. You're fine.
Is this against magic or a spell?
It's against a wall of water.
Could be a magical.
My saving throw is so good.
That's a 7.
Glue?
A 7?
15.
15?
10.
10?
Mm-hmm.
How about glue?
Yeah, strength saving throw.
Okay.
I said everybody but Adrex. You just don't get advantage or disadvantage.
I don't know why monks have strength saves, but they do.
But
Because they're hard to knock over.
24.
Okay. $15 points of bludgeoning damage, which you can cut in half if you pass that save. DC was 15.
Hey.
Because no matter where you are in the Kovnos, the impact of this water begins splintering bridges, tears through this dam, uproots these trees along the shore. It's damaging all these houses. There's debris and shrapnel and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Leaving most of the center area in ruins. This lighthouse comes toppling down. The entire minnow begins to list to one side as the bottom of it begins taking on more and more water. This guardhouse is swept away. I don't know what D8 is up there, but it's very probably gone.
I think you said it was a smokehouse.
It was the smokehouse, and only one of you got to go there. Anyway.
Damn it.
Birdie and Red, who failed that save. The two of you end up in the water and just frantically scrabbling around. Are either of you proficient in swimming skill?
Is that a skill?
I don't know if that's
Or not swimming, athletics.
Athletics?
Yeah,
No.
I had a brain fart.
I am.
You both are? Okay.
I am.
I'm not.
You're not.
But yeah, Birdie is. I got it because when I leveled, I took a feat that ended up giving it to me.
Okay. Birdie, when this wall of water slams into this house, you lose your footing and you spin sideways, land on your back, and slide off the slick roof. And you end up splashing down into the water. And you're battered around for a few moments, but you manage to get yourself oriented and grab onto a particularly large and strong strand of fen rot. Pull yourself back to solid shore. Right, you're in the water for a little bit longer than that. Roll some percentile.
Metal will be 10's 10.
Ooh.
95.
95. And you're battered around by the debris for a moment, and you realize that you've cracked your head up against the bottom of the damned minnow down in this area, which helps you orient yourself. You manage to pull yourself aboard land there. And then after a few more minutes of just pure chaos, things begin settling down. This wall of water came out of nowhere, slammed into the Kovnos, and then settled down as quickly as it arose. It's no storm, it's not raining, not even strong winds in the air. Looking out to sea, where there were a dozen or so ships moored, you see one of them has been completely sunk.
Not the Deceit or anything, though.
No,
right?
Deceit looks fine. Deceit looks like it was way out beyond where the wall of water formed.
Okay.
There is chaos in the Kovnos after that. The population, there have been many deaths, there's been a lot of destruction of property, and blood starts to boil over. Adrex,
Yes.
what's next with you? After you just watch helplessly as this wall of water slams into the cove.
Adrex's reaction would be to start finding and tending to the wounded. Because there's probably some people who got hurt by that.
Okay. Captain Eyes and Calcine standing on the deck with you, watching this wall of water. And when you call out to have a dinghy brought up, so you can go back to the Kovnos to help.
Mm-hmm.
The captain asks you to hold up for a moment. He goes back into the forecastle for a few minutes. You see him and Calcine exchange a few words very briefly in front of the door. And then he meets you at the side of your boat. He tells you that under the circumstances, perhaps it's best he go with you.
Under the circumstances. All right. Well, another pair of hands will be great.
As the two of you are rowing towards... Yeah, he's going to help you tend the wounded and whatnot. That's what his end game is.
I mean, Adrex doesn't know any better, so he's assuming the best.
Yeah.
As you're rowing back, and let's be clear, you're doing most of the rowing.
Oh, of course.
He asks you, he seems very preoccupied with something, but he asks you a lot of searching questions about the nature of this metal relic that you found aboard the Blue Nixie that Windy brought back. Before now, he was only interested in it because it looked valuable and it was probably magical, and he had his wizard, alchemist, and thaumaturge researching it. But now he's very curious about where you found it, who had it, what they were doing with it, etc.
And Adrex would be too concerned about helping the wounded to have any sort of guard up against that, so he would just answer the questions as open and direct as humanly possible.
Okay, so what do you tell him?
That we found it at Windy's monastery, and that some acolytes were using it to dam up.
No, he's asking about the one you got on the Blue Nixie.
Yeah, the tentacly thing.
The heavy
that
black
one.
metal tentacle symbol.
Oh, that one. I don't remember anything about that one. And that'll be Adrex's answer, too. I don't remember anything about that one.
Okay.
You didn't see it for very long.
No,
I didn't think so.
it was right. It dropped from the priest's hands right as Raazu died, basically. So he was probably pretty preoccupied there.
What does Birdie do after pulling himself out of the water once the wave hits?
He would look around. Basically, any body like Red, Windy, he'd look around. so he would not be alone because he has already been jumped once.
Hi.
What does Glue do next?
I'd imagine he would attempt to leave the minnow and go find his brothers, probably.
Okay. What does Red do next after pulling himself up out of the water? Do we still have Red?
So I'm assuming the state of the area after Red pulls himself up onto the deck is pretty much chaos. So
the
Red
area
doesn't
where
have
you
any
pulled up, it suffered less damage because you're way down here, deep into the cove. There is still damage in this area, but it's less total devastation and more. They're going to have to reinforce some planks and plug some holes and things. As far as the population, yeah, it's chaos because a lot of people are swarming off of the minnow now, running about to basically assess the damage.
Red's going to head over to the area where the wave hit more directly and try and help people, pull them out of the water or whatever.
And what is Windy doing?
How many people was I able to kind of like pull out of direct harm?
You and Red were both able to each get a handful of citizens. You were able to help probably 5 or 6 people each. Red got them into boats, and you got them up onto a roof. I mean, now they're up on a roof. Most of them, a couple of them, fell off after the impact. But I mean, some of them are starting to climb back down. Everybody has their own interests to look after at the moment. It does seem to be kind of like an every man for himself situation right now.
I pull out my sword.
You pull out your sword?
And I point at the 5 people, and I say, "You all owe me. You work for me now."
So you remember that pulling out your sword is illegal.
Uh-huh.
And you do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, how much chaos is going on right now? Like, how fucked is the cove?
It's probably been a great loss of life. A lot of damage that's going to have to be rebuilt. But it's not totally destroyed. It's not been swept completely out to sea.
But are there, like, obviously, like, a large number of people who are going to die without help?
It's possible. There are some dilapidated structures. The dam has been broken. It would be possible to get a boat into the actual cove from the ocean now. The guardhouse has come down.
In that case, yeah, I do it anyway.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to force these people to help me help people.
And you're not the only person.
People out of way.
You're not the only person with their weapon out. This is a pirate's cove, so a lot of people are going to take this opportunity of chaos to just do some looting and pillaging.
Yeah, exactly. So these 5 people are not doing that if I have any say about it.
Make a strength intimidation check.
Okay. I'm a monk. Can I do a weapon flourish to do a dex intimidation check?
I'm going to say no, because weapon flourishes aren't really what these guys respect.
Okay. That's a 16.
A 16. So of the 5 people on this roof, one of them tells you to bugger you and bugger your dead eyes, and he starts to climb down the back of the building. The other 4, you see them draw their weapons as well. They have, one of them's got a scimitar, most of them just have daggers. But you've got those 4.
Okay.
Whatever you need them to do.
We're gonna go down and like stop as much looting as possible and get people out of buildings. Like the people who are going to die, I have no idea how to help them. I have no medical training, but I have to assume Adrex is on his way. I'm going to be trying to funnel people to Adrex.
Okay.
And put down whatever. Like, this is not the time for looting. I understand it's a pirate cove, but...
So, Birdie, you managed to come across Red and Windy making their way over to where the most destruction is, up in this entry area here. This building at D2, which was the Orcs guardhouse, has been completely torn down. A lot of these trees on this area have been uprooted. Debris from the dam is flooding in, and most of these decks and small boats in this area are completely gone. It does mean that these traps are also probably gone?
Oh no.
That's okay. I can put them back later.
Okay, cool. And yeah, you managed to find the two of them. They seem to be attempting to help the citizenry. They're trying to quell fights. They're trying to keep people from looting. They're pulling people from under debris. And this is the scene that Gwu comes across as you're circling back across the north side of the Kovnos. You find the Yuan-ti and the Aarakocra and a few others doing this work before you find any of the bugbears.
Okay. Go up to Red. Say, "Oi, seen any of the other crew?"
Have I seen any of our other crew?
Probably not. You had a crew of 14, and this city has probably a couple hundred people in it.
I mean, given aside from people that might. Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'll give you a random chance to bump into.
I mean, for what Red was up to, aside from people who might be in imminent peril that were like still. By the time I get there, most people are going to drown. I've probably already drowned. 12 on the percentile.
A 12? No, you haven't come across except for Windy, who's coming up
who's
with
up there. Yep.
4 ne'er-do-wells that she's hassled, and Birdie.
Red's mostly trying to step in and prevent people from stabbing each other.
Okay.
That's pretty much the only good he can do right now.
Yeah, Gwu has a great axe on his back that he hasn't pulled out yet, but he looks ready to pull it out at any minute.
Okay. So you're helping in this work too, to quell fights?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Brick, anyone that we pull out who's like still able to move, I'm attempting to press gang as well. Like my intent is by the end of this, we're running a crew.
And Birdie, what are you making any attempt to do this work as well, or did you just find your guys like, whoo, they're okay. Okay, I'm gonna go hit the hay.
I'm going to slip away from Gwu, is what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Go see if I can't find Adrex.
One of you, either Red, Windy, or Gwu, make a persuasion check.
I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go
ahead and turn to Red, and yeah.
That's we're going to use my +10 here.
Okay. Make this at advantage because both Windy and Gwu are doing the same work you're doing.
No, you
double 3.
That was not.
You hit 3.
You
did not roll that.
Yeah.
Did I? Oh.
Yeah, I saw it. Just the turn.
Yeah, 3 is right underneath ours. So, 20.
20. Okay. And yeah, Birdie, after a few more minutes, I mean, looking out to sea, you see a lot of ships moving swiftly away from the Kovnos, going back out to the ships that are moored there, and only one coming back. And after a few minutes, you realize it's Adrex and Captain Eyes.
I'll wait for them.
Okay, and they manage to come ashore. And Adrex, when you step off, I mean, it's just devastation in this area. Trees have been uprooted, and Captain Eyes looks down at Birdie, and he looks a little surprised, and maybe a little impressed. And he says, it's a credit to you that you survived that wave with such a slender frame, little one.
Birdie just kind of dismisses the captain and starts telling Adrex everything that happened, and then slightly berating him for leaving him for the obvious distraction.
What do you tell Adrex happened?
That as soon as he left, Gwu, one of the bugbears tried to capture me and interrogate me about hand axe.
Captain Eyes asks you, what is the state of the minnow?
I haven't been over there, but from what I think it's all right. If a little damaged.
And then he looks back at Adrex and says, "What will you do now?"
Have you seen any injured?
There, and I point him over to where Red and Wendy are, and say they're over there pulling bodies out of the debris and stuff.
All right, let's go.
And I'll follow Adrex.
Captain Ice follows the two of you over to where Red, Wendy, and Glue are. At this point, you guys have press ganged several other people. And that persuasion check was a 20?
Yeah.
Okay. Birdie. Well, Adrex, go ahead and make me a medicine check, because Birdie's not doing any particular work. Birdie, what's your passive insight?
Passive insight is...
I'm sorry, not passive insight. Make me an insight check, I mean. Because your attention is not focused elsewhere.
That would be like a... That'd be a 6.
16 on medicine.
16 on medicine?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a 6 on insight.
Red, Glue, and Wendy are still pulling survivors out from under debris, people pinned under trees and stuff. The ones that are able to move and work, they're trying to get them to assist their efforts. The ones that can't, they've started to kind of line up off to the side. There are already a few people binding wounds. There's not any triage taking place. It's just, hey, there's a member of my own crew over there, and he's got a broken leg. Maybe I can go over and set the bone. Kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, Glue would be on the priorities. Would be any of his bugbear brothers, followed by any members of the deceit crew, and then anyone else. Like that's Glue's priorities right now.
Okay. Captain Eyes approaches where Glue and Red are. And he says, "Keep working, men, but I must ask." I'm sorry, I don't have this NPC's name in front of me.
Goblin 14.
Goblin 14.
Did Goblin 14
That guy
survive?
gets around.
Did Goblin
does.
14 survive? Oh, we need to
Actually,
know.
he asks if any of you know the fate of the counselors after the wave.
Glue shakes his head and said, "No, I left the minnow as soon as I was able to.
I was washed up onto the minnow, but the damage wasn't as bad there, so I headed over here where I could do some good."
They're not here doing the work, so I don't give a damn.
Captain Eyes takes a coin pouch, kind of covertly, and he drops it on the ground next to where Red and Glue are. I'm assuming Wendy's in the air directing people for the most part.
Sure.
And kind of under his breath, he says, "Keep doing this work for as long as it needs to be done." And then he motions down at the coin purse. And then he begins making his way towards the center of the Kovnos, away from you.
Glue scoops up the coin pouch.
Okay?
Keeps working.
It's filled with coin.
Adrex is making inquiries as to where Yashnar's is.
Last anyone knew, Yashnar's was asleep back at the boarding house.
I could go look for him.
Boarding house is still up.
It did take some considerable damage and a lot of water. It's partially flooded. And this northwestern wall looks like it's partially come down. So it's anybody's guess. Yashnar's had a private room, though, as I recall, which would have been up on the second floor. Yeah, you'd have to go over there to find out.
I can go for you.
Excellent.
So I'll go check it out since I'm not doing anything else.
Okay. And when you get there, yes, Yashnar's is indeed alive, and he's already begun the same kind of work that Adrex is doing, tended to the wounded, but he's being much more pragmatic about it. He's making quick decisions about which people could be saved, and of those that can be saved, which ones will still be useful to their crew after they're saved. If somebody had a limb torn off, Yashnar's is much less compelled to get around to them as to somebody who just needs some stitching up and bandaging. But yes, he's there. It looks like he suffered some minor injuries. And when he sees you, he calls out, "What of Adrex?"
I just point to the other direction. He's over there doing the same thing you're doing, more or less.
And he just nods gruffly and returns to his work.
Okay, I'll run back to Adrex and tell him what Yashnars is doing.
Wendy, are you focusing your efforts just in this area, or are you making your way through the rest of the town as well?
I'm gonna make my way through the rest of the town, essentially trying to get people together, because there have to at least be some people who want to help that I don't have to fight for.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna be trying to group as many people together and as many people who can be easily convinced, because I have no compunction at this point about menacing anyone I have to.
Will Wendy actually use violence?
I'll probably knock someone unconscious because I am still a monk. But I will if it's a question of will I take out one guy to impress 5? Absolutely.
Okay, and so you have to use violence in a couple ways as you're going about this work. There's the odd people who are just trying to loot and pillage. You see them taking coin purses off dead bodies or not quite dead bodies. You see them sneaking into holes in buildings that weren't there an hour ago. And some of them just have to be subdued. And sometimes you see a gang of ruffians that have come together doing the opposite of what you're doing, and you've got to thump their leader to get the rest of them to fall in line. What ends up happening, though, is during these altercations, as you're making your way around the cove, the people that are with you, this little gang that you've assembled, begin to cry out for the Kovnos. They're under the impression that you're doing this work for the good of the cove.
Sounds fine to me.
And after an hour or so of such work, as things begin to calm down even more, you guys manage to set at least some semblance of order. There are lots of rumors about what happened. Somebody angered some sea monster somewhere. Hey, did you hear that the Deceit apparently found some kind of weird relic that they haven't told anybody about? You hear grumblings of the Kraken cult operating in the area. Notably, though, you don't hear any reports of any of the counselors being killed or wounded. However, nobody has seen Handaxe, the Black Dragonborn, since the wave struck. Probably Gwu was the last person to see him.
And what was he doing before I left the minnow? Was he?
You and he both very hastily left the minnow, but then went different directions.
Okay.
At the time, that didn't seem strange. He, of course, had his entire crew and all of his things to look after. But you haven't seen him since, and now the word is that he's not in the Kovnos anymore.
Once we've got a minute, and Gwu can take a minute to take stock. How much coin did Captain Eyes leave with us?
It's a pouch with 30 gold pieces in it.
Okay. I actually forgot to take my payment of the share from. All right. Cool. All right, I have corrected.
A couple of hours pass, and as the sun begins to rise, you guys have done all of the good work that could be done. You've saved everybody that can realistically be saved. And there's a lot of grumblings about what's going to happen to people who bared weapons. There's this crazy feathered woman flying around thumping people that some people seem really sore about. Some people are literally sore about it because they personally got thumped. And as of morning, the Kovnos seems kind of split. Half of them want the council to bring these would-be vigilantes to justice because they broke the laws of the Kovnos. They bared weapons. They brought violence to people. Others are hailing them as heroes. You know, they kept order. They made sure people weren't stealing from other people, weren't taking advantage of the situation. Is it safe to assume what side of this divide the 5 of you are on?
I'm on the side that's not getting me killed. I would prefer not to die.
Red's on that side too, though. I will note, I mean, unless he was literally like someone put a sword in his face, he wouldn't have gone for his weapons at any point.
Okay. Birdie, you gonna throw me a curveball here?
No,
I
don't particularly care.
Gu's of the opinion that, yeah, heads needed to be thumped, and thumped they were.
Still debating on
What did the group of you do as the sun's coming up and things are starting to calm back down? The little cook fires are going up here and there amongst the wreckage. People are taking stock of their dead. There doesn't seem to be much more work in as far as like immediate emergency response. From here on, it's going to be assessing damage, cleanup, repairs.
Yeah, Gu would turn to the others that are still here. I'm assuming Red and Adrex.
Well, everybody will be back at this area, so you've got all 5 of them there at this point.
All right, and then Gu will say, "We need to make sure that we need to find all the get all the crew, the Deceit crew, either back to the shoreline muster point. We need a head count. We need to find out who's still alive, who's dead."
What did Birdie say to Adrex about what Gru did again? What was the specific details?
I told you what happened. Like they lured you away with a distraction, and then immediately tried to.
You said kidnap, though, right?
I mean, yeah, that's basically what they tried to do. And then they asked me about hand axe, and then I got away because I'm slippery.
These guys are like 2 hours of idleness away from being at each other's throats again with knives. Like, they were... I was able to get them to work together because there had just been a giant wave, but now there's not a giant wave. They're all tired, wet, and hungry, and they each have weapons.
But
I need to start getting these people together, rebuilding things, and find a way to get them paid.
I
don't think money matters given the state the cove is in. I think what we need to do...
They're pirates.
Money always matters.
But I think what they immediately need is food and shelter for the night.
Agreed.
So
that can be their pay for today.
Yeah, so we don't need to worry about getting money, but we need to salvage any food that hasn't been destroyed or roiled into the water by the wave, and maybe raid the stores on one of the ships.
And Gu, to your point, the best way of getting all of our... figuring out what we can give people is figuring out who we have to feed. So if you want to get on top of putting together a census of these people, a big list, feel free.
Yeah, get their name and their crew, like the ship they're from. And if they're not from a ship, just count them as members of the Kovnos.
I only care about the Deceit.
That's fine, but you're looking for 18 people among several hundred. You're going to find other people while you're looking for the Deceit.
Can you write?
Yeah.
Alright, so here's some parchment. Here's a quill.
I'll go with him.
Adrex, you go with him. Don't let him kill Birdie, by the way. Glue, we haven't forgotten that.
Wendy, you and I, let's go see if we can find some food. See what's left in this place.
And what's Birdie doing while you guys are
Gu
working?
looks very grudgingly at Adrex.
What's the height difference between Adrex and
Gu's pretty brick shithouse.
Okay.
I gotta admit, I've always pictured Adrex as being really short. I don't know why.
Adrex he's a shorter Dragonborn.
He's a wide Dragonborn.
Exactly, I picture him as being short and really wide.
He's like a rectangle.
I would say he's Gu's probably got about a good head over Adrex.
Well, Adrex is glaring up at Gu then.
I mean,
So Adrex is Joe Pesci in this situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is Birdie doing?
just watching Gu. Like I said, I haven't decided if I'm going to stab him.
But what are you doing?
You should go join.
Red and Windy is they're gonna go secure food, make sure people are getting fed. Adrex and Glue are gonna start taking a census and find out like what the loss of life and which ships have been most damaged.
Yeah, I'll go with the group that Glue is not in.
Okay, everybody take a level of exhaustion.
Fair.
Sure.
Where do we set exhaustion on this sheet? It's in the conditions.
Click.
It is in the conditions. Okay.
Red, Windy,
conditions.
and Birdie. Are you guys willing to do raiding? If like somebody's hoarding food or it comes to light?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Without a question.
There's no real shortage of food. You've got just a mile outside of the Kovnos are these fields. Bo's and Bob's fields. There's no shortage of seafood around. I mean, the wave brought with it dead fish that can be roasted up. There's no shortage of fen-rot to eat either. But you do run into situations where like somebody's hoarding food and is trying to scam it. There are, of course, ships with food in their cargo holds that are being, like, out to sea right now that are being very stingy about it. How do you go about unlocking those treats?
I mean, if they're out to sea, I think we should leave them alone.
I don't know. I feel like if we have at least a few people who are... If we can find at least a few people who are on the crew with that ship, maybe we can try to use them to convince their captain to, like, go with it. But otherwise, I think, like, if it gets dire enough, we're just going to have to go in and fight this out.
Okay.
I mean, the first thing Red says is you will be paid a fair wage in the future a fair cost in the future for your food. But right now, we don't need to worry about money.
One of the three of you make a persuasion check. Make this at advantage because both of your groups have some of Windy's helping gang.
Jeez.
Coming
that's a 17.
Okay. One of the ships out to sea has a cargo hold just stuffed with Southling harvests that they brought up to sell. And the initial response was they were going to wait a day or two for things to get really dire in the Kovnos before they started unloading this cargo at triple and quadruple prices. And you have convinced them that it's against their best interests to do that. By saying, basically, if you get this stuff in town quicker to make sure that it doesn't get dire, people will think much better of your ship and you'll get more gold in the long run.
Basically, we'll pay you for it now. If it gets to the point where it's 4 days down the line and we have to take it.
Adrex and Gwu.
Hey.
So one of the ships in the harbor was destroyed by the wave. It took enough damage that it's not repairable. I guess I should roll to see if anybody from the Deceit was killed, but I don't have my Deceit text file open today, so... There was a pretty heavy loss of life. And not only loss of life, but also the casualties in terms of some of these ships are going to be very, very undercrewed. Disproportionately. And everybody's looking for someone to blame. Whose fault was this wave? This was not a natural phenomenon. There was not a storm at sea. The winds were calm. It was the dead of night. Somebody did something, and there's lots and lots of theories. Both of you individually make me an investigation check, please. Is that your first one for the day?
That is.
Okay.
Most people only have one each day.
My investigation total is...
That's at a disadvantage, because...
I mean,
not
I can roll
disadvantage.
lower than a 1. Like, give me a break.
Oh no, wait.
Are you just now rolling?
No, I did. I got a 3. That wasn't my roll.
Okay.
But I rolled a 3. I thought I had to roll a disadvantage, but I never mind.
So there's a lot of rumors and hearsay about whose fault it is. And it's just a lot of petty and bitter rivalries from some of these ships at sea who have clashed before, bubbling to the surface and coloring their biases, making them more likely to point fingers in certain directions. On towards the afternoon, after you've managed to quell most of the violence that was going to erupt, you've managed to get a good sense of which ships are most damaged, who lost the most crew, what businesses in town. This lighthouse here and the smokehouse are completely destroyed. In fact, the shape of this center sandbar and these docks are no longer accurate.
Sure.
By the time the 5 of you reconvene into the afternoon, a lot of workers have focused their immediate attention on repairing the minnow, making sure the hull stays intact, bailing water out of it.
That makes sense.
Just because that's the richest part of town, and it's kind of the center of trade. But as the 5 of you kind of come together for your midday meal, taking a short break before you get back to work, a woman approaches you, and she's old. She has gray hair. She has very wrinkled skin. Her ears have a very slight point to them, betraying some amount of elvish blood. To her back, she's wearing a greatsword, a two-handed sword, and at her left side, she's wearing a longsword.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I respect someone who has 2 swords.
She's definitely dressed as though nobility. And she approaches. She stands about 10 or 20 feet away from you guys, and she watches as you begin to take your meal. And then she steps a little closer. As she's standing a few feet away from you, watching you, the people in your general vicinity, some of them scatter. Some of them leave. Others are kind of forming a circle around the area to watch what's about to happen.
When Gu notices that, does he know who this woman is?
You would actually, because you have been here before. This is Tara Ogden. She is the daughter of Demny Ogden, who is the old councilman who just died. She's
the way we want to be.
Gu's eyes go big real quick for a second, and then he elbows Red in the side, nods to her. We got company.
While Gu is doing that, Adrex grabs some of Gu's meal and shoves it in his face.
Got him.
Ogden approaches, and she says that she's heard reports of a feathered pirate who took out her steel during the looting last night.
And
she's come
Wendy
to investigate whether this is
Gu
true.
looks at Wendy.
Gu, this woman's reputation is that she is unmatched with a blade. She's never been defeated. She's also one of the favorites to become the new council, which is at opposition to Handax's interests, obviously.
And Wendy will put her food down and stand up and say, I did what I had to.
She says she's heard many reports of men who you fought during the course of last night's chaos. She's seen many cuts and bruises and heard many complaints against you.
And Wendy will nod and say, and they're still alive to make those complaints. They didn't have to be.
Red never took out his weapon.
Nope. Unless someone, like I said, unless someone actually put a sword in his face, Red didn't try and beat anybody up.
Nobody didn't, except for Windy. Is that correct?
Correct.
Gru knows better.
Yep.
And what's more, Ogden continues, I've come to learn that the lot of you serve aboard the Deceit.
It's no secret.
She asks if you know anything about the relic the Deceit carries.
I can honestly say I would rather take a nap than get a better look at them.
What does Windy say?
Which relic do you mean?
And she describes the metal relic that you found on the Blue Nixie on the Kraken Priest.
And I'll say, we took it off of a Kraken priest who was using it to work some ill magic. As far as I'm aware, nobody's really been messing with it yet. We're just trying to figure out what it does and how we can stop it.
She says that your actions last night, speaking to all of you, are to be commended, to rise to the protection of the Kovnos when so many would take advantage. And at those words, you see several of the men in the crowd begin to slink away. She asks if you feel that your work is done. She would have the 5 of you come aboard the minnow.
And
Bullseye
Wendy will
stay
look
real for a
around
second.
at some of the people who have been helping her put things together and say, as long as everything doesn't go to hell in the next 20 minutes.
You get the distinct impression that some of these guys who've been working with you all through the night and through the morning, you could safely delegate tasks to them. They'll make sure that everything is still getting done.
Yeah, and that's what Wendy will do, attempting to, like, put people in charge.
Okay. Are you guys
Get
going
real
back with
big.
Ogden now, or are you going to finish doing something else in the cove first?
No, I'm willing to go back.
No, yeah, let's just go.
No, we'll go.
Yeah, let's go.
Glu, what is your particular read of Ogden? Like, do you fear her? Do you hate her? Do you respect her? Where does it lay with you?
Probably pretty indifferent. Like, she's never captained a ship, so therefore he can't really speak to that. Or so he's probably pretty indifferent. But the idea, the fact that she came down and came to the 5 of us to bring us to the minnows kind of got him a little spooked, maybe.
As you guys are moving back to the minnow, Ogden immediately she begins to talk politics.
And
she
Glu's checked out.
And Glu's that's it. He's like, oh god. Well, you can go ahead and mute the microphone. You have to listen to this part then. She speaks a little bit about her late father, who sat the council, and that her opposition, the people who don't want to see her take his chair, would argue that she's never captained a ship. She's never been in charge out at sea. But that she grew up in this place, that she was born in the Kovnos, and she considers this place to be her ship, and that chair to be her place. And looking around at just the chaos that you guys have managed to quell, she tells you that it's her opinion that this place needs a captain.
Where was she last night?
She was aboard the minnow, making sure that the half of it that was listing didn't sink. What questions do you ask her about where she was last night? Because that's the general answer. That much you could have learned just from hearing people out and about throughout the morning.
Wendy is trying to get a sense for, because she was out there getting people together all night,
Mhm.
and she didn't see this woman out there helping.
So, but
Hey,
how do you
Adrian.
word that when you bring that
Wendy's
up to
trying
Ogden?
to get, at this point, like, she says, oh, she was helping save the minnow, and that's fine. Like, that's fair enough. Like, the minnow's not going to go down, but Wendy's trying to get just a sense for her as a person, because her current sense of her is she went where the power was, made sure she protected as much of it as she could, and while somebody needs to think of that, that doesn't exactly make you a person of the people.
Roll an insight check. Red, what were you about to say?
Hey, Adrex, did the captain bring that weird iron thing with him when he came off the ship? I'm kind of whispering this as we're walking.
I don't think so. No.
He did not.
Okay, so it's still, you think it's still in the vault?
Yeah.
Okay.
18.
18? You find it difficult to get a read on her. As far as her actual interest in the Kovnos, she seems sincere enough. But no, she absolutely was not out amongst the populace last night quelling fights. That said, inasmuch as there is a law in the land, you broke that law, and then she, when she had the opportunity, didn't punish or admonish you for it. She commended you for doing the right thing at a time when doing the right thing was illegal.
And that's why Wendy, like,